yeah, you guys will provide all the content. We'll provide you with the content. You'll deliver the content. And partners.
And you can I jump in there just, Kim, to say, and you can set it up any way you want. So if you have 3 sessions worth of content, but if you want to do more sessions or less sessions, one whole day, you want to add content about some of your other programs where it makes sense to add it in. You want, if you want to have guest speakers of transition businesses that are in your own town. So the idea is you have some information and stuff to present that is the meaty content, but the rest of it is kind of up to you in terms of how you want to sort of both present that to your constituents and set it up logistically.
Yeah. A thought as we're going forward, just on the flip side of the coin, we've talked about the issue of, a lot of our interested parties for the buyer side of the equation. A common obstacle they seem to be running into is the financing and the capital to get going. And I wonder if maybe we should think about down the road at some point a session on building your capital, sources of financing, that sort of thing. That might be an interesting thing to do for a buyer's.
Yeah, that is part of the third session, is talking through, despite the fact that it's a sellers working group, having sellers knowledgeable about financing options so that they can help steer a potential buyer to those financing options.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. And our last really session in a month, we'll have a panel of financiers, so a banker, economic development folks that can kind of talk about those perfect segue, Ben, because that was what I was thinking for the last session.
That was on purpose.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And then to pull back just even a little bit more, so your yeah, you did. Your goal is to get your sellers ready for the conference in February. So like those folks will have their sell sheet, understand their valuation, and be ready to meet those buyers who will be learning about financing the process, like doing all of that stuff during the conference. So your goal is to get your people ready. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you for that. Sort of putting that all into kind of there's an arc there. So
yeah.
Thanks for putting that kind of in front of us.
Okay, great. So for those of you who maybe have started your sellers working group planning, how is the planning going? Have you got a date set? What are you doing it with another partner? What's the format? I know we talked about this at the last call, and most folks said they would be ready to sort of have a strategy in place by this call. But what does that look like for those of you that might, Rachel or Matt?
I can just jump in, and I haven't done too much in planning, but I did confirm with Russ that we're going to do it together since our geographical area overlaps quite a bit. So Russ and I will be working together, and November is the planned time right now, not set dates yet.
Awesome. Sounds great. Matt, how's it going over there for you?
So a couple questions. Do we have like an ideal number of participants each of us should have, or is this just going to be based on who we got going on?
In your contract, you are shooting for at least 3 to 5. So it doesn't have to be like a million. If you get one, that's fine. Just get that one person ready as you possibly can. But your goal is at least between 3 and 5.
Okay. So kind of same as Rachel, we've reached out to Carol about working with us to do it, kind of co-host it. I'm sure she will. Haven't got confirmation yet. We're kind of in a weird vote, so Aaron and I were just kind of talking like who we are going to ask to participate, because a couple of our main clients have transitioned, which is great. We have the Country Florist, who obviously has gone through a lot of the process, but we want her to participate in hopes to be part of the conference. Eddie's Restaurant kind of has taken their public listing off is still for sale, but is going to basically regroup after the season. So we'll, again, that conversation earlier, they don't really want to talk right now. And then we've got the couple in Port Henry that we're going to reach out to hopefully have them participate, Decker's Flats and Foots Diner. And then the new one that came in a little bit north of us in Essex. Outside of that, we've either our businesses have successfully transitioned, or a couple of people have retired, and we've got people to fill their spaces. So we're in good shape in that sense. The program's working well for us.
That's great, Matt. And if there's just, if it ends up being that really you only have one interested, just set up 3 sessions, go to their place of business and do it with them where they're at. Like, it doesn't have to be, publicize it, but don't feel like you have to do it in a certain way. You can do it.
But I like the fact that just to say to them, we're doing this because we want you to participate in the conference in hopes to match you with a buyer. I think that's going to be the carrot.
And the great thing is you have 3 months to market the program. And so you can include it like in newsletters or email blasts or, any of that, and it could be folks that are interested in selling, it's even just preparing, even if it's not next week or next year, it could be getting ready to sell down the line. I know we want folks to participate in a conference, but I think there's a lot of value for people that, even if it's, again, it's a little farther down the line.
And for us, everyone's kind of in a different spot. Like I said, the Country Florist has gone through a lot of the process, has created a sell sheet. And the other, everyone's kind of in a different spot, but even if they've had those things, a good reminder, things are going to need updating. And, Country Florist is our one we can't find anybody for. So,
and we do have a couple of folks that might, if folks would be open, if one of you is doing it virtually and would be open to it, we have some folks in counties that don't have a liaison that we can push to someone too. Be like, these are when the other ones are, you can go to anyone, even if it's not in your territory, if you guys would be okay with that. For example, we don't have a liaison in Clinton County, and some folks in Plattsburgh that might want to do, that sort of thing. One in Fulton.
Yeah.
So
I missed the last meeting, so just one more question and then I'll shut up. Obviously we kind of practiced like the presentation part of it, which actually I thought went well. Is there just to remind me, is there a certain amount of time as far as we need to spend with them, or it's just getting through the content?
So the idea is that it's kind of 3 hours of content, and you guys practiced the first hour, which was kind of the overview of the whole process and just getting familiar with the whole process and kind of an intro to valuation. Then the second session is kind of focused on valuation and how you do the valuation of a small, just a fair market price. And then the third session, or the third hour, would be sell sheets, letters of intent, and financing options. There's so much content. I was telling Danny yesterday or the day before, there's so much content, trying to edit the content down so that it's still robust content, but isn't too demanding for all of you to really get into the weeds. So that's kind of where I went with those areas. Yeah.
So does it mean, so if it works for them to do 3 1-hour sessions, or it works for them to do 2 1.5-hour sessions, does it make a difference?
Right. Or just a morning, right? And you blow through all the content in a morning, right?
Okay.
That's where it's truly up to you guys to determine what you think is best for your folks.
Well, I figured in my reach out, I'm going to ask for their suggestions of what will work for them.
Yep.
Okay.
Laura, Ben, I know you had a lot of questions, but did you have anything started or anything else, other questions wise that might be percolating?
I almost, to some extent, I feel like I need to process what I've just heard offline. Yeah, I think it was more, if you could, Kim, if you could, or Danny, if you could run through the 3 session topics that you mentioned. again?
So you have the content for the first session, and that was the one that we practiced, and I asked everybody to kind of like get familiar. This, you don't have the second two actually quite yet, because I tried to put valuation and sell sheets in the same presentation, and it was 130 slides, and I'm like, whoa, that is
I remember that was
much content, right? So I'm like, all right, can't do that. So then I decided valuation would be its own session or module, if you will.
Yeah.
And then the third module is the sell sheet, you know, basics of putting a sell sheet together, letters of intent and what that looks like, and then financing.
Okay.
Because the rest, like due diligence, I don't know, like there's a bunch of articles out there and lists of questions, and but the letter of intent is kind of important because it's like the offer and what to include and that kind of thing. And then obviously financing, for a seller to be super knowledgeable around seller financing, what that looks like and how they do it. But then also this idea that even though the sellers are not securing the financing, if they can help steer the buyer to available resources, or, you know, perhaps more, you know, just being knowledgeable about the process will help the seller sell their business faster.
Yeah, that makes sense in that a lot of the buyers we've seen, or, you know, many of the cases that we've seen, it's like the seller already knows a person that they want to sell to.
Okay.
And, you know, right, it might be an employee or a personal contact or something. And, you know, then that person doesn't have the equity, the financing, whatever, and doesn't know what to do. So in that case, in those cases, it makes sense for the seller to be able to point that person in good directions. So
right. And again, even if it's offering the seller financing as a component of the financing.
Right. So, okay. I'm going to, Laura, unless you have something that you want to, any question that you want to bring up, I don't know if maybe we think about this a little offline and then take that up with Kim and Danny, any additional questions we have. What do you think? You're muted.
I have to mute myself, otherwise I talk nonstop. I'm confused. This is a lot of information to share with the sellers group, working groups, all that kind of stuff. And I don't feel qualified to talk to clients about what your business is worth, how to do the valuation, all that kind of stuff. I thought my role as liaison was to help the sellers get to a spot where, you know, okay, we got to get all your profit and loss together, and then we'll sit down with somebody who's more knowledgeable than Laura Pearson and figure out the valuation process. And then, okay, I will help you put your sell sheet together. I didn't realize that we were going to be leading the workshops or anything like that. I guess I was confused about the role of liaison. In my book, liaison means just connecting the people, the right people, not actually doing the workshops. And if I'm misunderstanding that, I'm so sorry. I'm brand new still. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I just don't want to overstep what I think where I need to be is what I'm thinking. Does that make sense? Okay.
And Laura, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, like some people do and some people don't. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, either that portion of the working group or you know, you can have one of us do it. Like, just let us know what you need, and we're here to support you to make that happen. And you know, once you're getting folks' stuff in the Excel sheet, then we're, you know, Kim's always here, I'm here, we can find somebody else to look over all of that stuff. You don't have to be the expert about that.
Okay.
And if you would, but yeah, we're here to help, you know, if you're like, oh, I'm just not ready for session number 2 and I need someone else to do it for me or with me, or I want an accountant to do it. Like, what do you need? Yeah. Let us know and we will help you get to that point. You don't have to, whatever, however much you feel comfortable with the information, or however little we can support you in that.
Okay. All right. That makes me feel better. Cause I was like, whoa, dude, I don't know anything about this stuff. And I can't tell Wilson Tile if Roger's getting a good, if it's a good process, if I'm doing it right. I don't know. That's why it was so nice to have Kim help us do the valuation. And I think Roger felt good about that. But I was here to, okay, we need this, we need this, we need this. And then I could help him get that stuff, like pictures and things like that. So that's my sweet spot right now anyway.
And Lori,
So,
yeah, the intent is for you to deliver as much content. I mean, that's the train the trainers, so that you guys can deliver as much content as you feel comfortable delivering. And the idea was that, like, you sit down with Roger, and I think this is what you did, and you populate that Excel spreadsheet. And then exactly, Danny or I step in to actually do the valuation and make sure that it works and all of that stuff. But kind of getting the P&Ls into the spreadsheet, starting to think through what is the seller's discretionary piece, like how much of it, that kind of thing. And yeah, and then I help you kind of get to the finish line with the valuation. Is exactly what our
Because right now we have 2 or 3 people that they've responded to my news releases. They've seen the news releases in our local papers and called me up about CBIT and wanted to do the initial inquiry. And Ben found the interview questions for me that were on the Google Docs that were already filled out. So I just copied and pasted, took out other people's information, and then I can do the interview with them with the cheat sheet that Ben has sent to me, to make my life easier, because I couldn't find it online. I was running into all kinds of problems. I was like, I don't know where this stuff is. But Ben helped me find that. So I will do those initial interviews. And then one of them does their accounting with ledger books. So I don't know how that's going to play out.
Well, it's, whether it's and Steve will be right with you on YouTube, Ben, whether their financials are in QuickBooks or on a handwritten ledger, it still needs to get moved over to Excel.
Okay.
So it's almost moot, quite honestly.
Okay. All right. Yep. Okay. I can do that.
And
thank you.
Hey, Steve.
Okay, so question, when can we reasonably expect, without putting pressure on you, to have the second and third PowerPoints?
Why don't I commit to the PowerPoints with kind of the notes? And here's a question. The first presentation, kind of the 1 hour overview, I gave you a separate kind of instructor's guide or whatever you want to call it that kind of matched up with each of the slides. Do you like that, or would you rather have the presentation notes in the note section of the PowerPoint?
6 of one, half dozen the other to me. I don't care.
Cool.
But here's why I asked the question. If we're not going to have them by the September Train the Trainer, which is our last Train the Trainer, we may want to have a follow-on just to review PowerPoints 2 and 3 with you.
I couldn't, and I almost, what I have kind of thought through, because Danny and I talked about it, and kind of this idea of doing small breakout groups and having you present to each other, that kind of got a pretty lukewarm reception. And so I thought, we'll do some work today, but we have basically 2 training hours left. And I thought we may be better served saving part of that time for just before you're going to deliver your presentations, for exactly that reason, so that it's really relevant, it's current. Like, I'm going to deliver tomorrow or the next day, and I want to make sure I feel confident with this content. And we'll always be available for that, right? So whether we use the time now or shortly before you're going to deliver, as Danny said, we are here and we'll support you in whatever way we can and you need.
I don't personally feel I need to do the role playing thing because I've given a lot of presentations. I can't speak for other people. What I would like to hear is you give a demo of 2 and 3.
So here's what's interesting is, if you'll recall, the way that we set this up, and again, it's been many, many months, you went through the training as a seller,
Right.
right? So that was all of the content. Then we're kind of breaking it down. I did in our last session, we got kind of pinched with time because Rob ran over a little bit. So we kind of rushed through that one. But yeah, I'd be happy to do that if you're more comfortable. Again, whatever works for you guys, just let us know.
Thank you.
Ben?
Yeah, so just shifting a little bit, I put this question in the chat, but also in terms of who we're having in the sellers working group, at what stage in the process is it ideal to have those participants be at?
You'll have to rephrase that question.
Okay, yeah. So in other words, so we got these clients who are at various stages in the process of selling. Which of those clients are ideal for inclusion in the sellers working group?
I mean, like we've done 2 sellers working groups. CBIT has.
Yeah.
And the participants some were ready to sell tomorrow and just didn't know how to get there. And some were planning to sell a year or 2 down the line. Some were just getting ready to sell at some point in the future. So I think understanding the process, I think understanding what to do to get your business ready to sell, so that you can, whether it's, training your employees and going on vacation, because buyers don't want to buy a job, they want to buy a business, right? So they want to know that the business kind of functions without them there, or, this idea that they, good or bad, should be paying more taxes because they want to show a profit. And that's what demonstrates profitability if they want to secure more traditional financing, which means they need to pull back on the seller's discretionary stuff that they're running through the business. Just stuff like that, so that they become knowledgeable about the whole process and how to ensure that they're able to sell their business for it in accordance with whatever values or priorities or that kind of thing that they have.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So it seems like there's maybe a range of clients that would be, may get value out of doing this, obviously with the anticipation of the conference. Roger, Roger, we've taken him through the full valuation sell sheet process, so maybe he's ahead of where the sellers working group would be. But then, since I'll warn you, since then, I think we've got potentially 4 more clients.
Wow, that's awesome.
Since dealing with Roger. Success breeds success, maybe.
Yeah, and the word gets out. The word gets out that there's value.
And those individuals we haven't gone anywhere in the process with them, so they might be a little more appropriate, because then they'll get the whole arc from overview through sell sheet.
Yep.
So, okay. Yeah, I was just trying to get a feel for that, as to who's kind of going to get the best benefit out of being in the working group.
And again, you guys will get this content, this kind of 3 hours of content.
Yeah.
And then we kind of fully expect that you'll massage it a little bit to make it your own. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But it's the basis or the foundation of what you want to deliver and how you want to deliver it and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just did a count on my fingers. Since Roger, we've got 3 more, potentially 3 more clients.
It really, what's amazing, I did some work in Lake Placid And it's just like, I don't know whether they go to, I don't know, business after hours and they talk about it. And then it just like, it just keeps going. And it's pretty cool.
You know what I think has been a big one for us is Laura putting out those press releases. That's where they're seeing it.
Yeah, and again, just the, you know, when businesses transition successfully and we do a press release and we're like, oh, the Center for Businesses in Transition was instrumental in our helping. And people are like, oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's so Laura, and that's something we wanted to share with the other liaisons is that we, you know, Laura's been putting out press releases about CBIT, what it is, to inform, you know, I mean, you got to hit people like 7 times or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, I think what 3 of them, Laura, said we saw your press release in the paper, and so I'm calling you because yeah, I want to sell my business here in Edwards. So,
and again, and it's like, it's so, you guys will, I think you'll find it's so rewarding to work with these folks because they're people that have worked on their businesses for decades and they're really ready to be done and they just don't know how to get there. And so when they are able to establish a valuation and they get a sell sheet, like one guy said to me, he's like, now I have the confidence to be able to put my business on the market because I have the valuation, I have the sell sheet, and I feel like I have support through this process.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's pretty cool.
So thought, Laura, maybe let's send copy of your press release to the group and other people can use it to, you know, get some of their own out to their own local media.
Thank you so much. That's a great idea. And that's so great. You guys are getting some good traction. That's awesome.
Including, I showed you one, it's in the email I sent, it's the motel at Waddington, Riverview at Waddington Motel. It's lodging, it's up for $899K on the MLS. So we'll reach out to them.
Great. So I want to make sure we're mindful of time. We really want to make sure today that we're jumping into the learning portion earlier than 10 o'clock. So,
okay. Hey, Matt, you had a question?
And I also want to make sure that Jenna gets to talk about our sellers working group. So Matt and then Jenna, is that a good plan? Okay.
Would it be okay as part of our sessions for like an additional 15 minutes, half an hour, we offered Q&A with our resident expert, Kim?
As part of the which?
As part of our session, like a Q&A with you as a follow-up on particulars that, you know, you're
absolutely.
As our resident expert.
Thank you.
Okay, I didn't want to offer that and then be like, hey, FYI, I offered you.
Yeah, no, that's, I'm not gonna lie, my preference would be exactly that, is like you guys deliver the content and maybe I jump on at the end, me or Danny, for exactly that, for the last, whatever that looks like.
Well, then also, I also think that introduces them to you if they're gonna be meeting with you with some additional content development stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, I'm a resource with and through you guys, right? So you're kind of our first line and I'm available resource to back you up, and Danny as well, and fill in the gaps. Because yeah, that's what I've said, is it's a lot of content and knowledge and that kind of thing, and you guys can deliver what you're comfortable with, and I absolutely can be available as the resource.
Yeah. And also, Aaron and I were just saying that, you know, you've had a business, you've sold the business, you've worked for the SBDC, you have a whole viewpoint of this process that I think they will relate to better than us economic development people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's it exactly. That's, you know, we, the Center for Businesses in Transition, are the resident, you know, between Danny and I and others, we're the resident experts.
Great. Jenna, how's it going with your working group?
Good. I have
Planning.
some plans typed out, but not hashed out. So my thought is to target a lot of businesses that we've been engaged with for a longer time period, but also put it out to the public to see if there's other businesses that we may not have been engaged with yet. And in my thought process, I'm kind of thinking 2 separate sessions, and I missed what everybody else proposed. So I'm sure there's other ideas floating around, but with 3 sessions apiece, so technically 6 different dates, keeping them kind of short and to the point, so an hour long, and offering one-on-one counseling with each business as well to kind of dive a little deeper, as maybe the 3rd session. So 2 group sessions, 1 individual session. And I don't know if this works with everything that we need to be doing as far as the grant is concerned. So feel free to give me feedback. Why I kind of thought that is we can market a first group of 3 sessions as we're doing it for the people that may have missed the marketing from the beginning. So kind of a cleanup session of everybody else that's interested as the 2nd month per se. And initially I thought that it'd be good to partner with JC or Jefferson County on this, but I really think that it's going to be smaller groups are going to be more beneficial, and keeping it local is going to be best so that we can meet at a local coffee shop or business to have these conversations rather than have people drive an hour to go through it. But would like to keep them in person if possible. That's what I have so far.
Cool.
Thoughts?
Thanks, Jenna. Anybody have feedback or thoughts for Jenna? So typically, so we're going to talk a little bit about the conference. We don't have a lot scheduled yet, except for the two dates, or the couple of dates that it's going to be through. It's going to be in Saranac Lake. Thank you so much, Rachel, for raising your hand and saying you would help sort of move this forward in your community. Matt, I hear, is going to be in Florida, which makes me very, very sad.
Sorry, Aaron will participate, but I will be not here.
But it'll be Sunday, February 12th. Will be in the evening a fireworks reception in Saranac Lake at the end of the winter carnival. So we don't have to put on the fireworks ourselves. It's great. And then the conference will be the 13th and 14th. The 2 big days. So we're hoping that we might get some traffic from folks coming in for the carnival, because we do get quite a few folks into the region for that. And then be able to stay for 2 days for the conference. We have in our budget, obviously we're trying to find all the money to put this conference on right now, and I'm working on sponsorships and that sort of thing. But our budget to make it as hybrid as possible. So if you wanted to do a sub location in your region, you know, you wanted to do like parts of it in your region, just virtually in a room, or if you want to come yourself and bring people, or, you know, however you want to engage. Rachel's working on getting some rooms booked for discounted rates if you want to stay in town. And I don't want to, we're going to have more details after next week, so I don't want to get too much into it now, but if you want to help plan more with that, like you want more of a hands-on role in the conference itself and developing the content, marketing, and that sort of thing, please let me know, and we will get a subcommittee together like we did last time to work on that particular project. Does anybody have any like quick thoughts about that they want to talk, that they got to talk about right now, before we move off that topic?
Just include us, and Aaron and I will participate in the planning, and I won't be here. She'll step into that role.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt.
I will not be around in February. I'll be on maternity leave, but I will have our staff be a part of this as much as possible.
Woohoo, is that a little announcement?
Yeah, I tagged it.
Aw. Yay.
November is my due date, so I'll be out for a couple of months, but
Wow.
I'll pass along all the CBIT information to Brittany and Cheyenne to take over.
Congratulations.
Okay. All right. So I was Kim gonna do the sort of roundtable to record for the annual meeting. So
Sure.
let's try to do it at the end so that we can get through. I just don't want to cut the content off if it takes longer. And if we don't get to it, then I will I'll set up 15-minute Zoom calls with all of you in the next couple of weeks, and I'll just do it that way so that we're not taking up time doing that.
So we switching over to content? Cool. So I have been racking my brain to try to figure out how best to ensure that the content is kind of sinking in for all of you, and that you're kind of getting your getting your arms around what we want to do. And I going through the slides, there's certain value in that, but what I did is I actually put a couple little anonymous quizzes together that I'm going to deliver to all of you, and that will kind of help us. I think when you're prompted like, I don't know if I know that, right? Like it just sinks in a little bit better. So I have two 10-question quizzes that I'm going to roll out, and we're just going to use it as the basis for our dialogue today. And then if we have time, I think we're in a different place with regards to content now than maybe we have been up to this point, because maybe there wasn't clarity around, who was going to be delivering the content and that kind of thing. And so now that you're more aware that you are going to be delivering the content, I think it might be more relevant. And so we'll go through these quizzes, we'll talk about the different things, and then if we have time, we can decide if we want to look at the valuation content again. The cell sheet, I think, is less technical. So that's fairly straightforward. Matt, you asked about a template. We do have a template. We have like an instruction guide that we can share so that they can put it through and that kind of thing. So we're going to be a little bit more organic today than we have been in the past, but it's almost just more dialogue around the content and your familiarity with it and your comfort level with it. So I'm going to give you quiz number 1 first. It's a 10-question quiz. All of the responses are anonymous, so don't worry about, nobody's going to know what you don't or don't know, but just spend some time. And there it is. And again, we'll just use this as the dialogue, as the basis for dialogue. So we'll probably give you 10 minutes to take care of this. Alrighty. I think we are, oh, there we go. Awesome. All right, we're going to end the poll. Cool. And we are going to share the results. And so can you guys see the results? Okay, cool. So the first person a seller should contact when getting ready to sell their business is attorney, good, accountant, SBDC advisor, love that, and your closest family member. You know, obviously any of these could apply. Probably, in my opinion, the most important person to contact is your accountant as a seller, just because they can help you start to get your kind of financial ducks in a row. Certainly SBDC advisors, you know, I didn't even put down there was CBIT. That would have been number one. Like, that's the first person. So silly me. But yeah, the accountant is someone that's really going to be with you every step of the way. One thing that I didn't include here, we've talked about asset allocation. And what that is you have the different components of the business that need to be valued and sold. The goodwill, inventory, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and then kind of the other stuff. There could be real estate. And each of those components have a different tax implication for the buyer and the seller. And so understanding the tax implications of the various pieces, just starting to perhaps get your financials a little tighter, all of that is important. And so certainly your accountant, my thoughts around, attorney, my thoughts around attorneys are, you know, they bill somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 and $300 an hour. You want to certainly be smart about selling your business, and you want to make sure that everything is in line legally, but let them know that you want to try to minimize your legal fees. I one time had an attorney that wanted to get involved in the negotiations. Like, they felt it was their role to be involved in the negotiations, and that is not their role, right? You want to have, generally what will happen is the letter of intent gets agreed upon, right? So that's the offer, and it kind of gets negotiated back and forth. And one of the questions on this, and we'll take a look in a second, is a letter of intent legally binding? No, a letter of intent, generally speaking, is not legally binding, but it is the document that gets negotiated back and forth. And once the letter of intent is agreed upon and signed, that's when it gets turned over to the attorney so that the contract can be drawn up. And that's when you want to start to engage. SBDC advisors certainly can be helpful, and closest family member, yeah, it's a big decision. So you definitely want to. If anonymity is important to a seller, they should consider a broker. So it is true, because that broker can be that first line of interaction. Brokers can reach out anonymously to their network. They know how to market a business anonymously. They can screen applicants so that only those truly vetted potential buyers get through to you, to whoever the seller is. So while a broker is expensive, and we'll talk about the percentage that they make in a little bit, if it's you trying to market your business, like, you're going to be out there and you can figure out ways as the seller, or the sellers can, but a broker is definitely, if anonymity is important, a broker is definitely a good way to go. And please, if you guys have questions, like, chime in and ask me to, like, this is a dialogue and I don't want this to be, Okay. Sellers' discretionary earnings are, we have net profit plus inventory, net profit, non-cash items such as depreciation and owner's benefits, and revenue minus inventory minus furniture, fixtures, and equipment. The bulk of you got it right. It is net profit plus non-cash items such as depreciation and amortization and owner's benefits. So that is a concept that we really want to hone in on. So if that's not something that we're clear on yet, we'll see if we can figure out a way to gain clarity on that. The thing with net profit is net profit on a P&L does incorporate depreciation and amortization and that kind of thing. And those are non-cash expenses that are just, accounting kinds of things. So it's not, net profit isn't the right picture. And maybe what we'll do in a moment, let me do this. I'm just gonna, I will find some slides that will help us gain a little bit of clarity on this. And then revenue minus inventory, that's not it. A sell sheet should be beautiful, just 1 to 2 pages long. That is absolutely the answer. It's like a resume. It puts the business's best foot forward, showcases the best assets of the business, and you just want to use it as a teaser to entice somebody to reach out and learn more about the business. A seller should include all financial information. You guys are exactly right. You want a seller to include enough financial information that a potential buyer has a sense of the size of the business. So whether that's total revenue, profit, the total price for the business, and goodwill, furniture, fixtures, you can include it all. There are different schools of thought, but you definitely want to include some information that gives a potential buyer a sense of the size of the business. Because if you have a $20,000 down payment, you can't buy $1 million business. Similarly, if you're looking for $1 million business, the flip side is true. A letter of intent is legally binding. It is not. So the bulk of you got that. That's great. When a seller offers seller financing, they don't need to worry about securing the loan with collateral. You guys are exactly right on that. You want to try to figure out a way for the seller to secure the loan, whether it's the inventory, the building. I am not going to lie. I had no idea that and I learned this literally a few days ago, because we're selling our building. We're selling 31 Durkee, where the business used to be. So we own the business and the building. We sold the business, but not the building. The buyers of the business rented from us for 2 years and then moved out. So then we were selling the building, and the loan that we had for the inventory was also secured by the building. And they were in second position behind NBT, who had the mortgage on the building. But I honestly had no idea. Not that it would have changed anything, but as we're trying to sell the building, learning that the lender had not released the lien on the building when we sold the business. So that was, I guess, shame on us, but I guess I didn't know, so whatever. Let's see. Okay, question number 8. If a seller is considering offer seller financing, they should get what from the potential buyer? Wow, good. All of you guys are awesome. Yes, personal financial statement, credit report, and proof of funds. Beautiful. And just kind of in talking about that, you can ask or suggest that your sellers, so the vetting of the buyer, you can start that process, a seller can start that process as early as they want. It is not uncommon when a seller is marketing their business, be it through an email that push, something posted on Biz Buy Sell, whatever that looks like. The seller could ask that potential buyers in responding to the advertisement about the business being for sale, the seller could ask for their down payment capabilities. The seller could ask for their experience in the field. the seller could ask just different questions that start the initial vetting process. It's probably not until you would have a signed mutual NDA, the non-disclosure, that you would ask them for, you know, their financial statement, their credit report, things like that, because that's obviously potentially confidential information. But I've kind of said it a couple of times. If the seller is going to open up their books to the buyer, it can be expected that the buyer would open up their books to the seller as well, because a seller doesn't want to waste time. Somebody could be genuinely interested in buying the business, but if they don't have the capability, it's a waste of time. And so vetting as early in the process, the capability, the financial capability of the buyer is super important. Economic development organizations are very hesitant to fund the purchase of small businesses. And that is one area where economic development organizations are pretty involved in the purchase of small businesses, because they are perceived as a little bit more risky, and they really try to help out there. Okay. A buyer, owner operator, should be able to pay what after they purchase a small business? And most of you got it right. It is the debt service, a reasonable salary, and then a small investment in the future. And this is where, when we talk about valuing the business, I call it validating the valuation. And that is exactly that process. Is based, we make some assumptions around a 20% down payment, and that's cash that a buyer has, right? So they're not borrowing that 20%, hopefully they have that, they've been saving. So that's cash that is the down payment, and they're going to finance that remaining 80%, whether it's through owner financing, whether it's through more traditional bank, credit union, that kind of thing, and or economic development organizations. But by and large, there will be debt service that the buyer will need to make those loan payments. They should be expected to be able to make those loan payments. They should be expected to be able to pay themselves something that's reasonable. And they should be expected to be able to reinvest in the business so that they can grow the business and capitalize on growth opportunities and that kind of thing. And where we run into trouble sometimes is somebody has told an owner that they can get X, Y, or Z for the business, and they hang their hat on that, even though that valuation really doesn't make sense. Because one, nobody's going to finance it, and two, it doesn't make sense. And we run into this all the time, where owners of businesses, have some astronomical valuation for the business. And it's one of the questions that we often ask. The single largest reason why businesses don't sell is unrealistic expectations on the part of the owners, and it just doesn't make sense. So yeah, thank you. You guys did great. All right, let's go with our poll number 2. Do we have any chats in here? I'm still here. Okay, good. Okay, my little poll number 2. Okay, we're going to launch that. All right, poll number 2 is launched. Take a look. All righty, we have all 6 of 6. Awesome. We're going to end the poll. We're going to share our results. And here we go. All right, goodwill is. You guys are solid on what goodwill is. It is all of the above. It is, yeah, how profitable a business is, how long it's been around, all those good things. And so thank you for that. And Laura, thanks. Appreciate the heads up. When a seller is preparing to sell, they should run more personal expenses. Definitely not. Clean up their finances. Absolutely. Go on vacation. I know that sounds odd, but it is. If an owner can't go on vacation, it means the business can't be successful without them. And a buyer doesn't want to buy that business. A buyer doesn't want to buy a business that is so reliant on a single owner for the success of the business. So definitely kind of understanding that an owner needs to be willing and able to go on vacation is important. It means the employees are capable of running the business, and that's very appealing to a potential buyer. Definitely document processes and procedures, move their business, great, and pay more taxes. That is another one. When the reason that one of the benefits of owning a small business is to be able to run the discretionary expenses through your business, the things like health insurance, life insurance, your car, your cell phone, maybe meals and entertainment. Oh, we went out to dinner and we talked business, right? So that you're minimizing your tax obligation. And again, it's not hokey pokey from IRS. Maybe some of it is a little bit, and there really is a continuum of what some owners run a boatload of stuff through their business. Some of it's legit, some of it's not. Other people are very above board and don't run anything discretionary through their business. But financiers, when we calculate sellers' discretionary earnings, the owner of the business will accept basically all of the items that are run through at a seller's discretion. The buyer may not. The buyer may not accept a lot of those expenses that the owner says are discretionary. And a bank only takes like owner's salary and maybe health benefits. So even though I, as an owner of a business, say, oh, these are run through at my discretion, a bank is not going to see it that way. And so as an owner gets ready to sell their business, they definitely want to pay more taxes because it shows more like legit profitability that a banker is going to be willing to, or they are black and white. So anyway, enough about that. If selling quickly, a seller should sell their business anonymously. Obviously, that will slow things down because it's very hard to find buyers. Offer seller financing, 100%. I recently had a sale that went from discussions around interest in buying the business to being closed in, I'm going to say it was like 10 weeks. Because the buyers had access to some capital, their own money, and the bank of mom and dad helped out some. And the owner offered seller financing. So there was no credit union, bank, or economic development, because that's where it slows it down. So it was one of the faster because of that. Ensure that the due diligence period is time bound. Absolutely. In the letter of intent, the seller wants the due diligence period to be very short. The buyer wants the due diligence period to be long, right? They want as much time as possible to dig into all the different things. The seller wants it to be 60 days is pretty traditional. And you want that in the letter of intent. expect to get a high price, obviously, and then market the business openly. Very, very good. A broker usually earns, you guys are right on track. It is 10 to 12%. Some could want as much as 16 to 18%. That's a lot, the 10 to 12%. So it's still a lot. It's not like selling a house where it's 6%, 3 plus 3, because it's a whole lot more work to sell a business than it is to sell a house. When calculating the value of goodwill of the business, the multiplier is higher for small businesses. That is true. Small, no, sorry, that's false, sorry. The multiplier, so we calculate the seller's discretionary earnings, right? So we take our net profit, we add back owner's benefits, we add back the non-cash. We then take that seller's discretionary earnings and multiply it by an industry-specific multiplier. Small businesses are perceived as riskier than larger businesses, and so the multiplier is lower. Again, just because of the perceived risk. So it is false. Categories of expenses that are often added back to calculate sellers' discretionary earnings are, you guys got this. Let me just see, cell phones. Yes, you guys, the bulk of you got it right. Employee salaries, owner salaries, and health insurance, we don't add back for employee salaries because those are critical to the success of the business. If you don't have employees, your business can't function. It's not important to highlight a business's growth and expansion opportunities when marketing a small business. You guys got that. If there's anything that you want to showcase when you are marketing a business, it's that. It's the growth and expansion opportunities, because very often a seller is kind of at half throttle, 3/4 throttle, right? Like they've been doing this a long time and they just don't have the energy to capitalize on all the different opportunities that are out there. But a buyer is going to expect that they will capitalize on all of those opportunities. And so not only highlighting those opportunities, but if you can actually monetize it for a potential buyer, that is, say, gosh, if we expanded like a bridal shop, if you have a bridal shop and they typically, are only open 10 to 6, but if they could, 2 nights a week be open from 6 to 8, and they could expect that that would add 10% to their revenue, and that would bring X amount to the bottom line. That's kind of just a way to show a buyer how those small changes to the operations can flow through to the bottom line. On average, the largest expense, you guys certainly got that, is definitely legal fees. And inventory is valued equally when selling a small business. That is in fact false. Inventory gets dated. So older inventory, obviously it's been on the floor for a longer time, and clearly it's less appealing to buyers. So that older inventory should not be valued at the same percent of newer inventory that's just fresh on the floor and that kind of thing. The other thing about inventory is, particularly with retail establishments that have maybe been in business a long time, it's possible that there's too much inventory to validate the valuation. I had an owner that had a homewares business for a long time and had like $1 million in inventory, but they were only making $1 million a year in revenue. That's one turn of the inventory. That is not, but it's inventory that they owned. So that in that instance, and it could apply to inventory, it could similarly apply to a business that has a ton of furniture, fixtures, and equipment. The owners would either need to sell off a portion of that inventory or furniture, fixtures, and equipment, or discount it deeply so that the validation, the value of the business would validate. Banks love to finance no, they don't love to. You guys got that one 100%. Like they are pretty reluctant because they're by and large quite risk averse, and they don't like to, you have to, like, in order for a bank to, and in our next session, I'll have representatives from banks and some economic development organizations to just talk about what they like and don't like and that kind of thing. But by and large, they don't love to, unless there are those things. The business hasn't been in business for a long, long time. It's very profitable. The credit score and personal financial statement of the buyer is like through the roof. They have the right skills and experience. Like everything needs to line up. So that is that. All righty. Okay, so that was kind of that. So by a show of hands, who feels pretty good about their grasp on the content? Okay, Steve. Okay, awesome. That's awesome. Because it's feeling good, Matt. Okay, that is great news. We have some time together now. Are there content areas? If we look at, let me just bring this up for a moment. Let's bring our where is my little, I'm going to share my screen in a moment. Okay, we're going to do this. Whoops, where am I here?
And I think that was a great way to maybe engage businesses through the selling working group too, is to put out these quizzes as maybe like, how much do you know at the beginning? And then use that as a tool to teach those topics.
I think it's awesome because
I really like
sometimes
that.
People don't know what they don't know.
Right. Or at least maybe they think they know, but it's totally different. So if you could share those, I think that would be a great tool for us to use.
Sure. Yeah. In terms of marketing
Yeah.
the sellers working groups. Yeah. That's a great point. I will make a note of that.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. So if I share my screen here, all right. Hold the phone. Okay. So here is our overview of the process. Building your team right on through. Are there any areas that you, while we have some time together, would like to dig into a little bit? Like, if you guys think that it would be more valuable to go through this material again, kind of shortly before you're going to present it, we can save the time for that when it's really, really relevant, right? And you're ready to deliver. But if there are areas that you, how did whoever the folks that are still on the phone, do you feel like you have a pretty good handle on sellers' discretionary earnings and how you calculate that? Would there be, okay, why don't, I'm getting some, so let's, because I thought I would do this just because it's pretty important to because one of the things that I will ask you guys to do is sit down with sellers with those 5 years of P&Ls. And it used to be 3, but COVID's really kind of turned everything on its head. And so we'd like a better view into the history of the business. And then we make a determination around how the business is trending before and after COVID as to how we value it. But the expectation is that you all sit down with the owners and their P&Ls and you populate that spreadsheet that I have shared and that I can look at with you now. And you talk about how critical is this expense to the success of the business, or is it an expense that you are running through at your discretion? Owner's health insurance clearly has no bearing on the success of a business. So that is something that an owner is running through at their discretion. Similarly, like I ran 100% of my gas through my business, but like really, I went to the bank a couple times a week, 2 or 3 times a year, I would go and pick up or deliver bikes for customers. From an IRS perspective, it was fine, but it really, like, I'd say 20% of what I ran through with the business was a clear business expense, and the rest I ran through at my discretion. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So here we have the add backs, and here are, so here is our P&L. So we have a P&L, and let me just see, let me go to slideshow, and just so it's a little bit bigger. So here's a very obviously tight, concise P&L. You have revenue, cost of goods sold, gets us to our gross margin, and then we have these expenses on this P&L, gets us to our net profit of, I've got to move this thing up here. Yeah, 57,300. Now we want to calculate cash flow, because we want to understand the cash flow of the business, not the net profit. This is where we start to add back the depreciation, because depreciation is a non-cash item, right? So we get to add that back, and that increases our cash flow to the 60,500. So we increased by that amount. Then we want to get to the seller's discretionary earnings, where we get to add back for the discretionary items and these one-time expenses. So an example is, like I mentioned, we show an automobile expense of $2,400. And our estimation is that $100 a month of that is like a legit critical business expense. And 100 of that is just something that the business owner is running through at their expense. Similarly, whoops, oh, what am I got? Hold the phone, here we go. Similarly, life insurance. An owner is running life insurance through their business at $1,000 a year. Clearly, life insurance is not critical to the success of the business. So we deduct the $1,000. The true business expense for insurance, that's probably liability, is $4,500. Similarly, whoops, that one's
Can I
not
stop
right.
you?
Yeah, of
I have a
course.
question about that.
Yep.
So say the business owner has, sorry, I'm going to write it in the chat because my kids are being really loud, but
You're
it's
fine.
about life insurance. Stick it in the chat.
Okay, let's see what Danny's question is here. While she puts her question in the chat, I don't know how this one got way down here, but dues and subscriptions, like I had a, I ran my Y membership through my business because, you know, it was important that I was fit. I sold ski, bike, and board, legit. I mean, not really. So I don't know why that one is way down there. Then the one-time expenses, the non-recurring expenses could be things like somebody developed a new website and that was $2,000. That's a one-time expense that is not expected to continue forward. Similarly, there could be some sort of a insurance deductible, a lawsuit, just these things that are once and they won't be expected to continue. Those get to be added back. Similarly, one-time revenue would need to be deducted. If you have a business that has a lot of heavy machinery and they sell a piece for $10,000, that's non-recurring, right? So you need to deduct for that. Okay, Danny asked, if the business owner has life insurance because they had to get it to get a loan, that's a great point. It's still similar to interest, and we didn't even talk about interest here. The interest that a business owner is paying on any debt they have for the business gets added back, because that interest is going to be part of the financing package that the owner is going to look at with their debt service and that kind of thing. So anything that has to do with an owner's financing gets added back, because the new owner may not have to have that life insurance. They are going to, when they look at the debt service for the business, it will be inclusive of those things. And so that would be, when you look at the different financing scenarios for the new owner, you would not have to include that, unless they were going to get an SBA loan that required life insurance in order to be able to get that financing. Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. Okay, so then as we said, we make these adjustments so that auto insurance becomes the 1,200, insurance becomes the 4,500, dues and subscriptions becomes the 1,600. We added back for that development of the app. So the seller's discretionary earnings is 65,300. That is what a new owner could, in kind of total owner's benefits, that a business can be expected to generate for the new owner. So let's see if we go, oh, these are just, I mean, we can go into some of this, but like if you're paying above or below market rent for, like, I owned my building, I paid myself above market rent because it was a way for me to pay myself without having to pay payroll taxes. But you would need to make an adjustment. Similarly, I had a client who was paying no rent, and the new owner would be expected to pay rent. And so we need to make the adjustment to reflect those occupancy expenses that a new owner would be expected. You know, we talk about owner's compensation, and we can go into this if you'd like, but these are the kind of things that I can help you because they get a little bit in the weeds. Let's say, but just for the purposes of being here, the first owner is making 50,000. We get to add back for that first owner because we're trying to get to the total cash benefits, you know, owner's benefits for one owner. But let's say the second owner is being paid 50,000, but you could replace that owner for 35,000. We make that $15,000 adjustment to show that the true business expense for the new owner is only 35,000. Similarly, it's not uncommon to pay a spouse who's doing the books nothing, right? They're not on the books in any way, but a new owner would need to pay somebody to do the books. You would have to add that expense. Again, just trying to get to a pro forma for the new owner based on the expenses that they would incur to continue the business. These are the one time. Let's just see if we have anything about, so this is the spreadsheet. And, you know, you go through and when you sit down with your owners and you populate these spreadsheets, obviously this is just 3, it would be 5 years, and I'll make sure that you have 5 years. You literally sit down, these categories closely match what would come out of QuickBooks or any other accounting software. In this column, you enter the expense that's on the P&L. And generally what I do is, you know, we go through and you can either, it's up to you how you do this. This is the adjustment for seller discretionary earnings. And then it will calculate the true business expense. We don't include amortization, depreciation because they're non-cash. The one thing that I do though, is I include them only so that when you get to the bottom of the P&L, the expenses, you can say, oh, the business has $280,000 worth of expenses on the P&L. You know that you populated the spreadsheet properly, but then you add back the full amount. So if it's amortization is the amortization of goodwill. If it's 10,000, you add back for the 10,000 because then the cash. But again, we're getting in the weeds here a little bit. I'm happy. This is where I get involved and help you kind of go through these. Do we have anything about, yeah, then here are the multipliers. We take the seller's discretionary earnings, we multiply it by the industry specific multipliers. And often those multipliers have a range. And again, the higher the seller's discretionary earnings, the higher the multipliers. And again, please feel, these are the guides that you can get from, we generally refer people to the Small Business Development Center to get these valuation guides. And here are just examples of the multipliers and how they vary quite a bit. You know, it's 20 to 30% versus 15 to 20% versus 30 to 35%, right? Just, they are industry specific. And, but then we go, yeah, and here's the different sellers discretionary earnings multipliers. You know, we end up with a giant range on these. And that's where you can see that there's a big range on these valuations. And then we go through this process of validating the valuation, because yes, every owner is going to want the highest valuation, but these are owner operated businesses, and the new owners need to be expected to be able to do those things, pay themselves, pay their debt service, and invest in the future of the business. Yeah. So anyway, that is just, hopefully there was some value in that. And did I stop? I did stop sharing here. We have another chat. Can we get the slide deck? So Steve, yeah, this is absolutely the slide deck that I will share with you will be the slide deck that you'll share with your buyers working group. I'm sorry, sellers working group, with the notes to accommodate accompany the slide deck.
Will it have the same detail?
I go into fairly deep detail. And I'd be happy to share more detail with you if you'd like. I don't think like the rent adjustments and the 1 versus 2 owner adjustments and that kind of thing, because again, I'm trying to find a happy medium between 8 hours of content, which I have, and 3 hours of content, which you guys are going to deliver.
I was asking for this for our reference, not to show people.
So you will have a deck that you can deliver so that they understand the seller's discretionary earnings and how we do the calculations and the validation and that kind of thing. I will happily share the more complicated, in-depth deck with you as well, just for
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I'm happy. And then if you have questions, I'm here as a resource.
Okay.
So if valuation is something you want to go deep on, I'm more than happy to help you do that.
All right. Thank you.
I just don't want all of our partners to be expected to go that deep, because it's just,
Nope.
Yep. Okay, cool. All righty. Anything else that anybody feels like? The valuation piece is without question the piece that's gets a little tough to wrap your head around sometimes, but cool. And again, when we get closer to when you guys are going to deliver your sessions, you can do that. I'm not sharing anymore, am I? Sharing my slides on my screen. All right, unless you guys have more questions or things you'd like me to talk about more, we can finish up. Cool. Danny, anything you want to? I don't even know if she's still there. She may be dealing with little people. She's back. You're I think you're muted.
I'm here. You are still sharing.
Oh, how do I? Okay, let me go. I am still sharing. So how do I? Because it says new share. You are all right. How do I? You think I never used you think I've never used stop sharing. There we go. Okay. Too funny. All righty. Any other?
If we have a few minutes and folks wouldn't mind, just giving some testimonials so we can record this part and utilize it for our upcoming annual meeting and our last Northern Border Regional Commission grant, I will splice it together with some of the folks that are not here. So do folks feel up to that this morning? Are you feeling okay giving a little bit of a testimonial about your CBIT experience today? You feel up to it? It's okay if you say no. I can call you back and we could do 15 minutes later.
And again, it's the what is it, a testimonial? Excuse me. And what isn't part of it, Danny? The question around what would it look like in 10 years if everything was like firing at 100,
So ideally, what we would do is I will go around and say, introduce yourself. How long you've been a CBIT, with CBIT and doing this work. And then if we look 10 years into the future, what are some concrete ways we may experience the impact of your work supporting business transition? So think about it in terms of like, in 10 years, there's going to be more businesses that have transitioned in our region, or, you know, I will see these new businesses that have already transitioned flourishing. And is there anything that you can think of that would help if other people in your community did for you? So I know that's a lot of questions. So we're who you are, and kind of 10 years in the future, what does CBIT look like in your community? And then we'll go back around and do a round of, you know, what is it that like other community members could do to help help you more, or to get the word out, or whatever that looks like. Do folks feel comfortable doing that?
Yes, but I have to run to another meeting.
Okay. All right. And then we'll only have like 3 people left. So I will reach out to folks separately, and we'll do it that way. So it's more.
And I'm going to say no, because I don't have the experience yet.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. So we'll just do that separately. And I'll grab those at a different time. But you can expect to hear from me soon.
I love it.
All right. Sounds good. Well, great. Okay.
Cool.
Have a great day. Thank you. See everybody.
Danielle,
you.
Danny, I won't be in the September meeting, so I'm hoping it's recorded.
Yep. And I'll send
Okay.
out, I'm going to send out all the recordings in links at the end. So you'll have the recordings of all the ones from all year long to like review. And I'm going to cut out the quick fire meetings. So you're just getting the recordings of all the trainings.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Take care, everybody.
Bye.